didn't have to catch it yourself. I'm sure you've had enough kills stolen from you in your life so far. Now, that's nice for the tables to turn. And I'm sure Abel, the guide who was thinking about leaving this area, is happy that he decided to take one last chance, because now he's getting to show his guests this epic scene. Excuse-moi. You've also been lucky with the rain. There's still a very gentle pitter-patter, but nothing that's going to cause any damage to the vehicle, or more importantly, the fancy equipment on it. I'm surprised she's taking so much time grooming, considering how hungry she looked. I thought she would have done less grooming and more scoffing. But again, that is the joy of spending time with these animals. They very often surprise you, and we may think we have an idea of what they're likely to do, but very often they prove us wrong. Now, what is interesting is that, and I've just remembered now that I saw a bataleur momentarily while we were off-roading, and I didn't pay too much attention to it, but I can just see it over there. I'm not sure how good your view is going to be. We're going to require some luck because there's some bushes in the way, but hopefully with the wind blowing they'll blow out of shot. But there you can see the bataleur sitting around. So this bataleur knew that there was a carcass here, and I'm really hoping we might get visuals of another leopard that may slink onto the scene. It doesn't make sense though. That actually doesn't make sense, because I mean, unless, again, it was just chance that the hyena came onto the scene as soon as this leopard found and stole it from maybe another leopard and then took it up a tree. But had the other leopard have known that there was a hyena here, it surely would have done the same thing that this leopard's done now. I'm sure she's keeping an eye on the hyena. It looks like she's keeping a beady eye on something. But either way, this is an interesting scene, and hopefully we'll be able to piece together exactly what went down here as the morning unfolds. But we're gonna send you across to Brent now, who's still with the Ellie Bull.
Well, we're now completely surrounded and immersed by the elephant herd, and I've just been enjoying sitting here quietly and listening to all the different sounds. I'm just going to keep quiet so you can just hear how many elephants are around us. You can hear the branches breaking, you can hear low rumbles, you can hear them stripping grass. But unfortunately it sounds like there's quite a bit of wind this morning. Oh, the little one's out in the open again. Hello, little thing. Having a conversation with an older cousin. Isn't that sweet? Oh, it sounds like we've got an... Sorry, I just need to check behind me. It sounded like we had an elephant coming up behind us. We do. A big female. Just heard the footsteps coming. Oh, itchy ear. Hello, big girl. It's okay. Yeah, it's all fine. Good morning, Daniel. Daniel's wondering what is the average lifespan of an elephant. Well, Daniel, about 60 years old. They can live for as long as 65, but it's unusual. So the average lifespan for an elephant is about 60. And she's also after the panicum grass. So nice sweet grass. If you actually chew the grass, you can taste the sugar in it. And see how she passes past the finger grass, and she's just looking for panicum at the moment. And it grows in lovely thick stands and is an important food source for quite a few different animals. And where is she off to? Sniff, sniff, sniff. She's going to find another thicket of panic. Move a little bit. My baby is being very cute, but he's being very cute behind a tree. So we're just going to try reposition quickly. Okay, while I move, let's go back to see what Xidulu's up to.
Sorry, Brent's signal's a bit shaky, but happy to have you back here. And again, I'm just astonished that she's not wanting to snack on her newly found meal. I still haven't been able to come up with any kind of theories as to exactly what's happened here. Well, I'm not confident that in what actually went down here, but it really is fascinating. I mean, the hyena, I haven't had a great look at it, but it definitely doesn't look like it's been feeding on this kill. So what has been? Something's been eating it. Something must have caught it and killed it, and even if it died of natural causes, I mean, what was eating it and why did it not eat all of it? It's a fully grown male deer. They're not big antelope, even when they are fully grown. And she's done a great job ensuring that she gets it high up into the canopy of this marula tree. Nothing's going to get to it up there. And I guess maybe that's why she's just so confident in being able to relax and rest and snooze until that, I guess, she gets hungry. She's had a busy morning. Maybe she just wants to snooze before breakfast. Good, it sounds like Steve has found some beauty on the ground.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Scotty. How wonderful is this little flower here with the droplets of rain on it. Very artistic. It's one of the morning glory species. Ipomere genus. I don't know the species name itself, but medicinal folklore. It's one of the medicinal plants of the gods, of the ancestors. Lots and lots of medicinal power in the roots of these plants, and are often used in the assistance of traditional healers to go on sort of spiritual journeys. Absolutely beautiful. I thought that was quite artistic. And look what we found a little while ago in the bushes. I've had this for some time, but with all the excitement with that elephant, I got a little bit carried away and forgot all about this porcupine quill. I know there was quite a big topic of discussion last night between Brent and Scott about the porcupines they have and have not seen and eaten, or whatever it might be. So isn't that marvelous? A beautiful quill. A modified hair, just like our hairs, except they're modified for defense. And this black and white coloration is to sort of ward off nocturnal animals, to say, watch out, I am dangerous, don't come near me, I will poke you in the eye. So quite marvelous, the largest rodent in South Africa. And look at that, that's very sharp. Very, very sharp, but quite supple as well at the same time. If I bend the quill itself, it's quite bendy, but with a whole lot of these, the porcupine, the misnomer, people think that porcupines can shoot these quills. They don't shoot them. The porcupine will back up to the predator, and as the predator comes, it will sort of like move forward or backwards and jab them into the predator's face. And this is one of the stabbing ones. You get also smaller, sharper stabbing ones, but then you get the very fine ones that right down on the bottom of the porcupine. And as the porcupine stamps its feet, they kind of rattle, and they kind of make the animal a bit more sort of fearful, a bit more warning, and it's often enough to sort of deter leopards or lions. And something that the Zulus used to do when they went into battle, first of all, they'd have these massive headdress of feathers coming off their head, and then have little sort of eggshells from tortoises or terrapins, for example. They'd fill that with sand. They'd tie them around their ankles, and as they marched in unison, about 10,000 strong, the rattle as they walked made the British army soldiers that we hear think that there were millions of people descending upon them, and all it was just the sort of the intimidation aspect of thousands upon thousands of very large human walking with just a nice rattle. So the porcupine does that with their feet, and that's enough to deter something from eating it. Ravinda wants to know if there's any hair particles inside. This is a solid hair, Ravinda. I'll actually show you by cutting it in half. My trusty Leatherman. And inside is actually just white. It's like a solid hair. So that is what it is made up. It is a huge, it's probably an accumulation of hair. I wouldn't say it's one hair like we have on a head. An accumulation of it, nice and soft and spongy inside. Very good. But as you look along the side of it, you can actually see the longitude. Okay, we'll have another quick look at the morning glory. Let's have a look there. Kruger, marvelous with the macro shot. Isn't that beautiful? Gillian wants to know why they only have one flower, and it's not the case that they only have one. There is a second one that is coming out over here. I think it might have even flowered already. It's dropped off. There was another one that was about to bloom that I think got in the way, and it got plucked off. But yeah, it does seem like there's only one flower on this at the moment, but I have no idea. The flowers are in response to moisture and in response to pollinators. So yeah, there's another base of the flower that has already been dealt with. And I've actually got an awn there as well. Look at that. That is a 3-awn. That's from one of our grasses that we find here. The 3-awn grass, hence the 3 awns. And awns are designed for in this particular grass, that when they get wet, they actually will burrow the grass seed, which is actually in my fingers. They'll burrow that into the ground. And so that had fallen off. Wind will move it around. I'll show you the grass itself. Now, we've actually got them all around us here. Here is one of the 3 awn grasses. It is a pioneer species. So in areas, I can demonstrate in a moment, in areas just next to us, see if I just pluck off the 3 awns, there is the seed on the end there. Can you see that? So all these 3 awns that we have, the whole sole purpose of them is to maneuver that seed into the soil. So they are what you call hydromorphic. They respond to water. So if you get a bit of moisture on that bit, it's not going to work now, I don't think. But it's not going to do anything now. But what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to burrow the seed into the ground. So being a pioneer, when these land on the ground, for example, on a little sandy open patch like this, I did a little discussion the other day. They'll land on this patch here, and the seed will penetrate in there, and slowly but surely over time the succession will start, and it will start moving into the sort of grassland that we have next to it here. So marvelous. We've got all these little things to see. I hope you got a nice look at that morning glory, and it is a glorious morning. Let's go over to Scotty, who is having some breakfast.
Yes, I'm eating a glorious peach, and that in the background is a glorious leopard. What a wonderful scene. Now, you've come at a good time, because she's been glancing up at her possible snack, and I'm confident that she's going to make a move and start feasting very shortly. She's been kind of staring up at it for the last few seconds, just like she's doing now, and here she goes. Come on. No, what you waiting for? Very ladylike. She's... Oh, here we go. Not rushing in and gobbling up her meal. She's being very delicate. Jamie, you'd like to know why I think she would like to groom before feasting. I'm guessing it's kind of something to kind of bide the time while she was catching her breath after exerting quite a bit of energy dragging this kill up the tree. So yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure what's taken her so long. I'm quite surprised it's taken her so long, to be honest. But yeah, I think, the most likely reason is she just wanted to catch her breath. And again, she does know full well that there's very little risk of anything going wrong now that it's up the tree. Well, she's going to probably try and position the kills so that she can access some meat easily. So it sometimes requires them to kind of rearrange the dinner table a little bit. And she doesn't seem like she's in too much of an awkward spot there. There's been no further sign of the hyena, but I'm sure it is still lurking around. And Puma, you've mentioned that this lady is better at scaling trees than Hosanna. Well, I'll take your word for it. I haven't seen Hosanna scale too many trees myself, but she definitely did fly up this tree with incredible speed and agility. Not that I actually saw it, we just heard her footsteps and the kind of carcass dragging against the trunk of the tree as she took it up. Let me see if I can move forward a little bit so I can actually see her face. That'll probably be enough just there. What on earth caught and killed this duiker? And as you can possibly tell from the little raindrops hitting the lens, the pitter-patter weather is continuing now. So every now and then Dave might have to get the old manual windscreen wiper out. It'd be nice if it gets to a stage that we get camera companies that just custom build us our cameras so that they're waterproof, that they've got windscreen wipers, that they've got auto leveling machines within them, so that the cameraman doesn't have to manually level every time we stop the car. But with the way technology is going, things are only going to get better, and the experience that we can share with you is only going to get better, and that is the great thing about these live safaris. I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's still in its infancy, this product and experience, and we're learning every day we out here, and we're also getting lots of new toys as the geniuses around the globe put their minds together to make some fancy equipment and technology which just allows us to do our jobs better and get you guys closer into the action. The raindrops are getting a little bit harder now. You might even be able to hear the gentle pitter-patter. My peach is getting wet. Not that that's an issue. I guess so is the leopard, but she's not going to be too bothered by this little bit of rain. It's nothing too serious. Top mod, yes, a male leopard would certainly climb up the tree and chase her away if he came across her. Male leopards are notorious from stealing from the ladies, even if it is their girlfriends. It's just one of the ways of the wild. Dave's trying to delicately position a rain cover over the camera now, so you might hear some rustling, and we're obviously moving around a little bit in the vehicle, so apologies for that, but there's no ways around it. We've got to do what we can to keep everything dry. Cape turtle dove calling off, not too far off. Toot-doo-doo, and isn't it interesting, Steve, who's not too far away, is thankfully not getting rained on. So why don't you head across to him while we make a few small changes to our rain cover setup over here.
Yeah, thanks very much, Scotty. I hope you don't get wet. The rain seems to have abated completely. We've got a dead tree. This is a red bush willow, as we saw before, but it is not actually dead. If you have a look how the branches are still growing over here. But what is marvelous about this, and it's something I see quite often, I was talking about how the grasses take their nutrients into the roots and into the soil as the dry season comes, and as all of this wonderful grass that we're eating is gone. the elephants start really struggling to feed, and all the leaves of bush willows, for example, are completely disappeared. All the nutrients go into the roots, and this is what's happened here. Elephant has come along, he's completely pushed this tree over, and he's fed upon the roots and the bark, because a lot of the nutrients of these trees actually goes into the bark and is stored underground in response to being protected from fire in our dry season. If you had all your nutrients above ground and fire came along, you'd basically just be burning everything that you had. So they store it down. It's a safety mechanism, and that's why when this tree is pushed over, you can see how the branches are growing again. But at the same time, if Craig just steps back a bit and you have a look at how this entire tree has fallen over, look at the dynamics of this entire bush. Everywhere where it's pushed over, we've got tall grass growing. We've got an entire ecosystem and habitat just here from where one elephant damaged the tree for feeding, uprooted it. It's changed the dynamics of the soil right here at the base. There's different plant species growing in here. Succession is going to take place. It is taking place right here. You can see how this grass is growing, fallen in. The soil is a little bit softer underneath because the roots that were here, there was an entire tree in the ground that's been turned over. So there's a whole little dynamic that's changed. The shade dynamic has changed. Right where we're standing probably was a little bit more shade, but now that shade has changed to this dynamic over here. Uh-oh, what's that? Thorns in my bottom, sorry. So look at that marvelous soil that we have here. Very clay soil. We must be just below a seep line as we sit. It's not actually common to find red bush willows growing on too much of clay soil. They generally occur sort of more higher up on the Katina, but this is just an example of how elephants in this ecosystem can engineer it, can change it, the dynamics, how they can shift it, the different grasses, huge habitat that's going on over there, not just for small birds and mammals, but also multitudes of insects will be living in the shade. And also the buffalo grass, which we're talking about, likes a little bit of shade. It's growing very, very nicely. And these seeds that are produced in multitudes underneath this fallen bush will be able to move out and recolonize the areas nearby. So marvelous. Me and my cucumber. It's really very nice. Not surprised, eh? Herbie, you like this as well, eh? Not surprised the elephants are munching it at an absolute rate of knots. Oh, this is awesome. Look what we found. A little elephant wallow. It's old. You can see he enjoyed himself. But look at what I found. It's just growing out here. We talk about succession. We talk about grasses moving in. My favorite plant out here, the dwarf sage, is growing just here. I'm not going to break it because it's such a small little plant. Normally I break a few leaves off because it's very, very good for clearing up your sinuses and making you feel quite nice. But you can see how this muddy section, it's all muddy, there's nothing growing here, but slowly the grasses are starting to move in. And in this case, this is the couch grass. Let me show you the seeds. This is the couch grass. Normally there's 3 fingers on that. There's only 2 on this one. And the couch grass is growing through something known as vegetative reproduction, which means that the grass itself is growing here. But have a look at how this above ground system is growing. And you can see over here how when it's grown across, it's sort of set some roots. It's going to grow again. That's going to move again. It's going to set some roots. And eventually this couch grass will cover this entire area and providing the shade. Sorry, Craig, did you fall into the mud wallow? Thankfully, there's no mud. Otherwise, Craig would be very dirty right now. So this couch grass will cover this entire section, turning it back into the ecosystem that it is. Okay, marvelous. And this is just from a small depression in the ground, small bit of mud that elephants have moved. Craig is making a hash of standing in this little hole. But as the elephant sits in here, takes a bit of mud away, this would have been just a very small depression. Maybe an aardvark did a little bit of digging. Who knows? And then a little bit of water got in, one warthog, then one buffalo, and then a hippo, not a hippo, an elephant. And slowly but surely, this is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. You can see the mud, very, very caked mud over here. Lots and lots of mud. And so the water is going to accumulate in here, and this mud wallow is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger until eventually something like Chela pan, one of the bigger pans we have here, will fall. That'll take time, but that's how it happens. Just with a small bit of disturbance, and slowly but surely you get larger pans and types of dams. Anna-Marie wants to know if the dwarf sage smells like eucalyptus. It smells like Vicks. I don't know if there's any counterpart in the world for Vicks. How would you describe Vicks, Craig? It's almost Bex. How do you describe Vicks? It's hard to explain. Vicks is a very popular product in South Africa for clearing up your chest. Okay, well, Bex says Vicks has got eucalyptus in it. So yes, it's got a eucalyptus sort of smell, but very, very quickly does it cure any sinuses, and it gives you a proper little mood sort of jump. Not that we need one this morning after seeing that leopard first thing. It's been quite an exciting morning, and very difficult to sort of calm ourselves down after seeing something amazing as that. But we are slowly walking down what seems to be a little bit of a depression, bit of a drainage. You can actually see it from here as the vegetation above these pools of mud wallows that are slowly but surely going to end up becoming much, much larger than they are. All the smaller clay soil is moving down and forming these little pans and puddles, as you can see here, the cracks. And it's very difficult for a lot of plant species to actually grow in clay because of this shrinking and swelling that they do. If you have roots, and plants really, really struggle if you damage their roots. So if you have areas that have a lot of clay, there's only certain tree species that can grow, because what happens is that the clay, when it's wet, is quite sort of, what's the word, sort of together, and as it dries, just like here, it'll crack. And if plants have got their roots in there and it cracks, it will damage the roots. Plants do not enjoy, well, trees do not enjoy shrinking and swelling. There's only a few trees out there that can do that. So what we often find on these clay soils is a particular types of grasses, which can tell you there's moisture. Okay, so let's go back over to Brent, who's bumbling around.
Well, welcome back. I've decided to do a boundary patrol to see if there's any sign of the Nkuhumas and if they've come back across from the north. Unfortunately, nothing just yet. But we're going to keep checking. It seems to be just getting colder and colder all morning. And fortunately, as a lot of you noticed, I've brought some friends from Kenya. One shuka for my scarf, and then, well, because it's St. Patrick's Day, I've got my green shuka wrapped around my legs. So there we go, nice and warm. Now I came to the Sabi Sands to get away from the rain and the cold. That's Mara country. And wind. But we do need the rain, so hopefully it doesn't keep spitting and actually starts raining properly at some point. Between drives, or after drive, of course. Although I wouldn't mind playing with the microscope. You know what? I think I've been gone so long, and you guys have got lazy with your flowers. Have you got lazy with your flowers? I think you have. So, who's ready for a quiz? There we go. Let's see who can remember what this one is. Now, oopsie, sorry, Seb. I'll give you a few hints. It is the host plant species for the acria butterflies. And it doesn't have an English common name. So you're going to have to remember the scientific name. There we go. And let's see. Let's go look for some flowers. Let's go see what other flowers we can find. Now, as I was saying, it's the host species for the acria butterflies. The larval stage, the caterpillars, will sequester from eating the plant hydrogen cyanide, and that's what makes the adults noxious. But, oh, yay, 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 yay. We're going to have to put flowers on hold because I've seen a big elephant bull. Oh, there's a hole. Oopsie. And just scoot across the fire break. Looked like a nice big bull, nice long white ivory, or maybe I just saw an elephant cow with long ivory, but it looked too big to be an elephant cow. It definitely looked like a nice big bull. Oh, he's beautiful. Nice thick ivory. Hello, big boy. Yo, is that Daryl? With the hole in his ear? It's Daryl. Last time I saw you, Daryl, you and I had words. Now, for those of you who don't know who Daryl is, well, that's what Taylor calls him, but he's a big elephant bull. When he comes into must, he can actually be very, very naughty. He likes to touch cars. He's actually put his tusks into Scott's bull bar before, and he's almost put his trunk into Tara's lap before. He's chased James, and in the one morning he decided to start his nonsense with me. So him and we had some words, and I think I came off second best, and he wandered off. He came off second best, and he wandered off a bit sheepishly after being sternly talked to. Hey, Daryl, he's behaving himself, not in must at the moment. Oh my goodness gracious. Cheryl has remembered all the flowers since I've been gone. Cheryl, you are spot on. It is indeed a Wolferia indica. Well done. I thought it was going to take a little bit longer for you guys to get that one. Okay, I'm going to sit here and hopefully Daryl moves into a little bit more of an open patch. While we do that, let's go back to Scotty and that leopard enjoying a stolen breakfast.
Yes, we have been kind of backwards and forwards. We thought about going and putting on the rain covers, but then the rain stopped, so we decided to rather come back here and show you as much of this wonderful leopard as we possibly can. And she's still just slowly nibbling away on her breakfast. I'm still perplexed as to what and how this all went down, but happy it ended up the way it did. She was looking for a meal and she found one, even though she didn't actually have to make the kill herself. I mean, if there was another leopard here, surely it would have hung around, and surely there'd be some hissing and snarling between the two. So I don't know, maybe the hyena had stolen this kill from another leopard somewhere and was kind of moving around with it and just thought it would take a break, and while it was snoozing nearby, the leopard sniped it from the unsuspecting hyena. But again, even that theory is not completely perfect, because don't drop your kill. I'm sure that hyena's lurking below, because the hyena just doesn't look like it was well fed at all, the brief glimpses we got of it. Well, she certainly is going to be well fed by the time she's finished her breakfast, and I'm confident she's going to still be here this evening. Quite a lot of meat remaining here, so good prospects for the sunset safari. Yeah, they've got the easiest, most comfortable spot. And that carcass is quite kind of long and gangly, so it also makes it difficult for her to position the kill in a way that she can access whatever part she's wanting to chew on with ease. she does know full well if that kill does drop from the tree, she could well lose it to the hyena that I'm guessing is lurking below. We positioned ourselves not too close to her, but in the hope that we would get some clear views from this angle of her snacking. And you can see there's quite a lot of bush between us and the base of that tree. Patrick, you'd like to know why I don't think the hyena killed the striker on its own. A hyena can hunt. They certainly can. And they can be quite effective hunters. But the prey that they'll be hunting will be quite specific. Oh, I wonder why she's going down. So, and I think a dyke is simply just too fast and slight for a hyena to take down. I really didn't expect it to come down the tree now, and we're not in the best spot to enjoy that happening, sadly. Whoops. Let's see what she's up to. So yeah, I just don't think a hyena would have been able to chase down a prey item like this on its own. An adult dyker would be far too streetwise for a hyena to take down. But, you know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was just an old, injured dyker that the hyena kind of saw a gap and could have hunted itself. The main thing, the reason why I don't think the hyena was involved in the hunting and or feeding on it is it just didn't look like it had fed much on it. So, or at all really, there was no blood on its mouth, its belly didn't look full. Huh. Wow. I've got no idea where the leopard's gone. Let me ask Abel if he can see it, one of the other vehicles in the sighting. Abel, can you see her? Okay, copy, thanks. So apparently she is just sitting at the kind of base of the marula tree. She obviously wasn't too comfortable up there and thought she'd come down onto the level ground where it will be far more comfortable for her just to rest and relax. She hasn't had that much to eat, and again, I'm surprised because she was looking really, really hungry. She's only been feeding for about 5 or 10 minutes. So I'm not sure what's going on really. Maybe she's got toothache. That's why she's not chewing as much as I would have expected her to. I'm only kidding. I don't think that's a plausible theory. And it's just so thick here that getting around and another view will be a little bit tricky, but it will or should be possible. Let me see if I can't sneak us through a little gap here. Okay, well it sounds like Daryl has decided to move on from Brent, and why don't we send you back to see what Brent's next plans are.
Well, yes, unfortunately Daryl went into some quite thick combretums there, so we decided to leave him be onto the dam cam and give you guys a good view during the day. Now, I almost forgot, and thankfully Rebecca reminded me, that it seems like hours and hours ago I asked you about sitting, and Elise says, is it a lesser striped swallow? It wasn't, and it sounds like no one got it right. So let me just get through this bumpy section and I will stop and tell you, or explain to you which swallow it was. Okay, there we go. 2 more bumpy spots to go over. And voila. So it was actually a pearl-breasted swallow, and there's a bird you can actually confuse with it from time to time, and that is the common house martin. So that can be a little bit confusing. I've been caught out by them before. So you can see there, that is the common house martin. But if we go back now, to the next page, the pearl-breasted. You can see those little black lines that come down around the throat. Is one of the easiest ways to not get confused with the common house martin. So it was a pearl-breasted swallow. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Now, the plans for the rest of my drivers, I still think Tumba's knocking around camp, around Gallagher, that area, because his tracks have not come out of this area. So I'm going to do another little sort of sneak in towards Gallagher Pan, check around that area. Is anything happening close to, and I will keep looking for some more flowers. I did promise flowers before I spotted old Daryl. Now, as I say, even though we have had rains, we haven't had great rains this year, and it has made, it means we haven't had as many wildflowers as we do in other years. So it's a little bit of a challenge. So, or maybe tomorrow morning on Bushwalk, I'll focus more on wildflowers, and I can really get down and gritty with it. Okay, so while I plan my wildflower attack tomorrow, let's go across to Steve, who is on Bushwalk.
Yes, thanks, Brent. Oh, we have found, someone wanted to see a mantid earlier, and we have spotted a beautiful little, looks like a type of flower. Blue Cozzy wanted to see a mantid. Here we've got probably one of the most camouflaged and beautiful looking flower type mantids out there. Isn't that fantastic? He's sitting on a little wild flower known as the snakebite bush. One of the only real flowers we're finding out this morning. Brent was saying that we don't have too many wild flowers because we haven't had a lot of rain. Well, the flowers were out, folks. You saw on my last few walks, we had a number of flowers, but it's amazing how just with the lack of rain over the last week, the flowers have all shriveled up. Well, they've been pollinated, they've produced seed, and they've probably dropped the seed on the ground and now shriveling up. And those seeds are waiting in earnest for either next season's rains or for another rain spell to fall on Djuma. Isn't that a beautiful little wait and hunt specialist? He is waiting for anything to come along, to come and pollinate that flower perhaps, and then grab him and there's dinner. Something else we found along the way, little track and sign. I wonder if you can see this. Can you see it? There's a very tight hair, and the animal that left it, we are assuming, was a wildebeest. So marvelous to find tracks and signs out in the bush, something that was left behind, and it's very hard, very, very taut. Oh, and I say that and I broke it, but quite a tough hair. Oops, broke it again. But I was giving it a bit of a smell, as we do out here. We like to touch and smell everything. No smell at all. But I bet you, a wildebeest, if you smelt this, he'd be able to tell you exactly the sex and reproductive potential of that individual hair. Joe, we only get the brindled gnu here. We only get the brindled gnu. We don't get the what's the other one called? How can I have lost my mind? There's the blue wildebeest and the black wildebeest. And the black wildebeest is more of a high-felt specialist. They've got a white tail, and they occur more in the Free State and in the Gauteng area. We don't get any of the black wildebeest here. Only the blue or the brindled gnu that we find in the low veldt in South Africa. I hope that answers your question. So we are slowly making our way back towards camp. We are going to be heading through the drainage line, or the depression, dry riverbed that Thandi had her cub in for many, many weeks and gave us such glorious views for all that time we had in my first month here. And as you all know, she's since moved off due to the interloper Hukumuri, who has displaced her partner in crime, Tingana. And I'm sure Brent and Scott are going to be putting in their effort, or myself this afternoon, putting in our effort to try and find that beautiful leopardess and her cub. So as we walk through these little drainage lines here, little dry river beds, it's important to be quite vigilant and to keep our noise down, because, as I said, there could be anything in here. I mean, what are the chances of us seeing 2 leopards on foot in one day? Craig's definitely got his lucky pants on, so who knows? We could be very, very fortunate. A few alarm calls of some birds there. One is a redback shrike, busy shouting. Another one sounds like a prinia. Evelyn wants to know when our dry season starts. It's going to be starting very soon. If we don't get any rain, excuse me, if we don't get any rain now, our dry season is essentially starting. So as of April, May, the dry season officially sort of kicks in, but we're seeing a bit of later rain now and again. It's not naturally supposed to be like that, but we are seeing a change in our rainfall. But generally our winter months, our dry months, start from about May through to August, somewhere around there. Plus minus, give or take a few days. Birds are not happy with something. I'm not sure what it could be. Might be a mongoose, it could be a snake. What do you think, Herbs? Herbie reckons they might be shouting at us as we come down into their little habitat down in the river. So we shall briskly move off and leave them in peace. So down in these little drainage depressions, this is the place to find. I know Brent was talking about it last night, but this is the common place to find tambuti. And tambuti is very easily recognized by kind of quite sharp leaves, jagged, and when you pluck one, the milky latex. Very, very common down in these river areas. And remember, folks, you should never ever burn the wood of this, because if you burn it, it's actually got a very sweet smell. African sandalwood, very, very nice smell, but if you inhale it, can make you quite sick. But if you cook meat on that and eat it, it'll actually give you such dehydration because of diarrhea that you could die if you don't go on a drip. So just be very careful with African sandalwood. The wood's got a nice sweet smell to it when it is not when it's not burnt. And that wood actually stays, that beautiful smell. You can polish it up like my stick, and apparently that smell will last for like over 100 years. So it's quite well popular for rifle stocks, for furniture, for certain tables. But if you do build or work with it, you've got to be very careful about that powder. If you finally break down that powder or sand it down, you get that powder in your eye, you could very easily go blind. So you need to be very careful with that wood. Okay, so we're coming out the other side now. Seems all is clear. No leopards in there, what to speak. But little bushes, all being browsed. Here we have the whiteberry bush. Can you see how it's actually been hedged beautifully around? Impala, all animals that will come down. We actually saw some feeding of scrub hare before on another bush, which you can quite easily see. Some of you at home have got manicured hedges. This is how it's done out here. It's the browsing by the animals. We don't manicure them. I was asked that question by guests years ago. Who does the landscaping out here? And I looked around and I went, the elephants, because essentially they are the major landscapers out here. But you can see the whiteberry bush with its new branches, very, very red, and they've pushed out, and all this is new growth from the last couple of months. So slowly but surely they'll get fed upon and broken down and hedged. You can actually see where the feeding is happened over here, right over there, and here's the new branch coming off on the side. So have you ever thought about an elephant or a giraffe as a predator? Well, they predate on plants, do they not? Sometimes they kill them. The definition of a predator is it's bigger than the animal or bigger than the other organism, and it often kills it. That is a definition of a predator. So a lot of people in science these days are actually talking about the predator effect of herbivores on the vegetation and how they interact. So I found some dung of a predator. It's not a predator. This is probably a kudu, eh? Maybe? It's a kudu, typical of the ruminant. If we broke this open and we look closely inside, you can see how finely chewed the leaf particles are in there, and also the moisture has been completely drained away. So I'm handling this predator dung. I'm only joking. We're not going to call herbivores predators today, but it is being used in local science when it comes to rangeland management. How do these animals predate on the plants, and do they kill them or do they not? What are the plants' protective mechanisms against these predators? So it is being discussed. Okay, so a wild flower that has just popped out in the last couple of days. Most of these would have fruited already, flowered and fruited. So just from the little rain we had the other day, we've got a new poison apple fruit or flower that has popped out, and that will soon be fertilized, and that will form a poison apple, which, ooh, hang on, have a look at the stick insect here, Kruger. Right here. Here it comes. You got him. Look at that guy. How marvelous is he? A stick insect, or should we call this one a grass insect? We do have the largest grass stick insect in the world, occurs here. It's called the giant stick insect. And his strategy, he's a herbivore, his strategy is to blend in with his surroundings and have little nibbles of the vegetation when the time comes. But he looks very much like his surroundings, and if it wasn't for us stopping to look at this poison apple, we would not have seen him. That's the beautiful thing about bushwalk, folks. You can imagine how much you miss as you drive around in the wilderness here, and how much you just completely drive past. But us slowly walking through, we've got the dung, we've got all sorts of tracks, we've got insects, we've got flowers. Really, really marvelous to be out on foot, breathing, leopards on foot, elephants screaming in the distance, eating all the grasses, constantly snacking. I think it's an absolute blast for a vegetarian to be out here. I'm always eating something. Not going to eat the dung though. On the other side, they're right there, Kruger. Ah, Herbie's favourite tree, hey Herbs? Now we've found the magic guarri with the red fruits. These, when they are red, are very nice and tasty. It's one of the reasons why birds see colour, because when you feed on, when you eat the ripe fruit, that's going to be better for you. So it's actually so soft that it's breaking like a plum in my fingers. Marvellous. Herbie is a hunter-gatherer. He has just gathered himself an entire pocket load of this. Wow. We could stay here for a while. This is fantastic. They are so sweet. How do you describe that, Herbs? What would you say? Kruger? You want one? Craig's busy with his hands. He'll have one shortly. But as I've said before, the seed is very big. If you look at the size of the fruit on my right hand and the seed. So there's not that much fruit on there, to be honest. Lots and lots and lots of seed inside. And that will go into a bird's belly, come out as a dung quite far away, transferring these seeds. Okay, so we're going to continue harvesting from this magic guarri. Hopefully it doesn't get us too excited, because Herbie says that the seeds are an aphrodisiac. So while we do so, let's go back up to Scotty, who's reinvented something.
Yes, I hope you don't get too excited as well, Steve. Otherwise, the next thing we may be shooting an X-rated safari deal. Oh, it sounds like my inverted hat's not working too well. It had blown off in the wind and I just put it on in a strange manner. I thought it may make one or two of you giggle. One or two of you may have shaken your heads in disapproval. But that is the joy of having so many people on board. We get lots of different emotions and thoughts and comments on our safaris, and that's what makes it so much fun. So we left the leopardess. Interestingly, she came down from the tree and then started moving away from that kill. And she moved into an area that was so thick that I just thought enough's enough for one day. But I'd be highly surprised if she does abandon that kill.
even though it's not very fresh, I mean, as in she killed it, it still looked fresh enough for her to feed on. There was no maggots on it or anything like that. So maybe, yeah, she's just going to go and check the perimeter and come back a little bit later. Ildi, you would like to know how long does it take to become a guide? To get your kind of qualifications to drive a vehicle can be as short as 6 months. So it's not a long period of time and it's not too difficult. But there's lots of different courses and kind of qualifications that you can try and get as you gain experience, and you can then start thinking about getting your walking qualification, which is called the Trails Guide qualification, where you need to do a whole bunch of kind of rifle shooting tests. You don't need to do the shooting test to be able to drive a vehicle around, but you do to be able to do the walks. But yeah, I mean, I just did a 6-month course where I was very lucky to be trained by an incredible mentor at a lodge not too far from us here in the Sabi Sands. And after 6 months, we were given a vehicle and some guests, and then we started to learn about the guest side of things, which is probably, I mean, it's an interesting job. A lot of guides become guides because they A, love open spaces and the bush, and B, because they love animals, or however way, you know, if you even want to combine those two. It's not necessarily because they love taking people around, and that can often be a kind of the trickiest part of the job, making sure your guests have a good time. So after doing 6 months of kind of, you know, theory and, you know, a lot of learning of all the different facts and knowledge and interesting things to tell the guests, you then kind of start learning how best to deal with the varying customers that can be on the back of your vehicle. Sometimes even if you've, you know, just got people with different plans or different hopes, or have been on safari different amounts of times, I mean, even if it's just 3 different couples, it can be difficult catering for everyone's needs. If one of them's a bird watcher and one of them wants to see the big cats, you can imagine how it's difficult to kind of find that balance and make everyone happy. So this over here is a roof. This is one of our rain covers, and we took it off when we were trying to keep up with Xidulu through the bushes, and I'm glad we did, because it's not as easy to maneuver after leopards when you do have the roof on. So now we've come back and would like to put it back on the vehicle, and we're going to send you across to Brent, who's got a few birds, while we try and put the roof back on.
Isn't that beautiful? Well, it's popped up, Seb. He hopped up. Where'd he go now? No, I've lost. Oh, there he is. Yeah, there he is. Definitely one of the most striking little bit. Oh, where's he gone? Oh, he's still there. Let me go back a bit. There he is. Center frame. A little bit left. Down. There we go. Definitely one of the most strikingly coloured little birds we see regularly. The crested barbets. He's all fluffed up from the cold as well. Not the best birding with that. Oh, he's hopped up. Oh, there we go. Look at that. He's actually trying to get some, he might be looking for borer larvae. And they've got quite a varied diet, crested barbets, fruit and insects. But now, terminalias are termite resistant, but they do get certain wood borers, and they don't actually go deep into the wood at all. They stick underneath the bark. So not true borers, and the crested barbets use that big powerful beak to sort of pry under the bark to see if there's any snacks in there. A Ravinda, it is a crested barbet, and you can see it's got its little coif or crest up at the moment, and it's all puffed up because it's quite cold. Well, it's busy doing a bit of preening now. Oof, shake it off. There you go. Scratch the head against the branch. Now, a lot of bird species will have bird lice in their feathers. So you'll see them scratching or dust bathing, and to try get rid of itchy little lice and things like that. So a particularly itchy barbet this morning. It's not really preening, it's more sort of scratching, trying to get under the wing there. Very, very pretty little birds. Cheryl says, what a beautiful bird. Indeed it is. And they are very, very spectacular birds. Now there's a whole sort of... Whoa! Excuse you. Was that a yawn? There's a whole sort of... I don't want to call them a super species, but a whole family of red and... Oh, there we go. Yawning again. Or it might have something... What are you doing, barbet? Of red and yellow barbets. We only get one in southern Africa, but in East Africa there's quite a few different species of red and yellow barbets. And it's not calling.
Looks like it's screaming.
Yeah, almost looks like it's got something stuck in its throat. They've got a very, very pretty trilled call, sort of a very, not monotonous, but a brrrr type call. Oh, I almost saw a lice, or something flew off him there as he was shaking. Yeah, well, we're going to leave this barbet to do its strange, dance on this little branch. While we do that, we're going to send you back to Scott to say farewell for now.
Yes, everyone, a bittersweet to say goodbye to you guys, but obviously that's the bitter part. The sweet part is that I'm going to a very, very special place. And looking forward to being back in the Mara. Jeez, how long has it been since I was there? Probably coming on 6 months. And like I said, we'll be sure to keep you updated on any developments as to what's going on up there. But thanks so much for keeping me company and riding alongside me for the last few weeks and months here on Djuma. It's been an absolute treat and a privilege, and we've managed to see some awesome stuff. So thanks so much, and make sure you guys keep an eye on Steve, Taylor and Brent over the coming weeks. I hope you have a good time with them. I'm sure you will. See you next time.